So, one of the first things that I wanted to show you all was something that I covered before. And this was essentially something that I personally don't think it's that good for society, in the sense that this is going to be the age of misinformation. Now, previously, a couple days ago, I did a video on this. You can see that I did this video called AI Just Changed Everything. We are in trouble. And essentially, this video right here was a video talking about the realism in AI. Now, in this video, I spoke about a few things, and you can see right here that, the problem is that if you're able to generate photorealistic individuals in real time, if you're able to generate people that aren't there in a way that looks super realistic, this is going to be an issue. Now, this is something that's a little bit different because it also adds on to the issue. And in that video, if you're thinking, wait, Mid-Journey's been a thing for a while, in that video, I basically just say that, look, there's realism and then there's photorealism. Photorealism is where you literally cannot tell if someone just took a picture on their iPhone, but then there's like, kind of realism where it just looks kind of professional. So basically, okay, the problem is that, and I spoke about this when this feature was announced, I spoke about this in a video, but essentially Google's new phone, the Pixel 9, has a feature, okay? And this feature is called the Magic Editor. So essentially, this is absolutely insane because this is the part where we get to uncanny photorealism with raw pictures. And this is exactly what I was talking about in that video, is that now we're in the chasm or the crossing over pit, whatever you want to call it, to where anyone who buys a Pixel 9, okay, and this is the article from The Verge, and I promise you guys, you're going to want to see this because this is absolutely insane. So what you can see right here is an image that someone has taken, okay? Now, you can see right here that someone has taken an image right here of like a lake or whatever, and then you can see right here that you're able to imagine certain things with, the AI generated image. So what you can do is you can effectively change what's going on in an image. Now, I don't know about you guys, I look at AI generated images all the time. Images from Midjourney, DALL-E, any AI image generator you can think of, I look at those images all the time. Now, with this image, there is no indication that this is an AI generated image whatsoever. That's because it's taken the raw image and then it's added the subject in on it. So it's sort of composited the image in, adding all the correct shadows, all the correct lighting, all the correct things that you need to do. And what's crazy about this is that this works directly on the phone, which means, okay, that now we're going to be in an age of misinformation where you're not going to even be able to tell if this is an AI generated image or not because it's so photorealistic. You can see right here that the article says that this is all about to flip. The default assumption about a photo is to become that it's faked because creating realistic and believable fake photos is now trivial to do. We are not prepared for what happens after. Now, I do want to say, okay, that lots of people say this, and people are saying that this is apparently alarmist journalism, and apparently this is look what the AI did after you explicitly told it to do that. But I really do disagree because this is completely different. You have to understand technology, of course, isn't good, it isn't bad. It's simply what we choose to do. But the problem is that it's not something like Photoshop where there's this complete skill gap. Like I tweeted on Twitter, I said, Photoshop requires skill and time, but with AI, it's a 2-second prompt that anyone can do. So you have to understand that right now, we are in an age where you can take an image like this and you can add anything in the image that looks 100% completely realistic. Now, we have to understand the implications for this. And whilst, yes, some people are going to be like, okay, this isn't that crazy. People have had Photoshop for ages. Like I said before, if you can instantly do something within 2 seconds, this just breaks down the entire barrier. And we're going to have a lot more images that are going to open up a lot more cases for misinformation and to potentially ruin people's lives. I remember, earlier last year, I talked about a case where someone's voice was used to say something that they didn't say and they got fired from their job. They were like publicly embarrassed. There were all these things going on. And I mean, what's going to happen in the future with people that tend to use this? The problem is that right now, okay, if I saw this image online, okay, I'd believe this. Like, I have no reason to question these images, like anything in the subject image. But now, okay, like genuinely, I don't believe any image I see. I always make sure that I fact check stuff. But the average person, they're not going to do that. For example, you can see right here, consider all the ways in which the assumed veracity of a photograph has previously validated the truth of your experiences. The pre-existing ding in the fender of your rental car, the leak in your ceiling, the arrival of a package, an actual non-AI generated cockroach in your cookout. When the wildfires encroach upon your, residential neighborhood, how do you now communicate to friends and acquaintances the thicknesses of the smoke outside? Now, I do know that journalism is very like, it's hacky. It's like, oh my God, look what it is doing. But this is a genuine concern. Like, you have to understand that all of these things are converging. And remember, there's always the one thing across AI technology that I always tell people is that this is the worst it will ever be. And we can see some further examples. You can see right here that we have a standard image. Then, of course, you can see that someone's, added an image here that I probably will blur on screen right now. It doesn't contain anything crazy, but it just contains like a car crash and something that just doesn't look that great. So, I mean, it's incredible. Like, this is genuinely rather incredible. And then we've got another image, which is of, like, I don't even know why they would put that there. I'm probably gonna, blur that out too. But essentially, it's just an image with a package that looks really suspicious. And if they were to take a picture of it, it's likely that the subway would most probably get cleared out. So it goes on to state here that the erosion of the social consensus began before the Pixel 9, and it will not be carried forth by the Pixel 9 alone. Okay. And of course, you do have the fact that, yes, you do have AI generated watermarks for pictures, but this isn't always like something that's going to work. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy to see how society manages to evolve. I think it's going to be pretty crazy considering we're now living in this age of, distrust and disinformation. But let me know what you guys think about this. I think this is, rather crazy. I think this is some, just incredible piece of technology. I think, whilst, yes, this could be used to create some cool pictures, but the age of misinformation is here, and that's what I want you guys to understand. Now, another thing happened this week as well in AI that, it's not news, but it's still rather important because it goes to show how crazy this technology can be. Now, unfortunately, while I was recording this video, I actually saw something on the timeline that I just couldn't believe. And this is why I say that this issue is just going to keep getting worse as AI continues to get better. And I do think that in the future, there's going to be some, insane regulation coming in place within the next 6 months, because this is just absolutely incredible. So you can see right here that there's a deep fake live of Elon Musk just going around, just interacting with people. And someone made a compilation video of the conversations. And the worst thing about this is that if I was scrolling on TikTok and I saw this, I would genuinely believe that this is Elon Musk. Like, there's no real indication that this is not like Elon Musk. Maybe it's just the hair. The hair kind of gives it away. But if it wasn't the hair, like, I genuinely would think, okay, Elon Musk is just chilling in his Tesla. And the worst thing about it is that I don't know if this person's an actor. I don't know if they're playing a role, but they're able to mimic his intonations really perfectly. Like the way how, he speaks, like all of that stuff. I mean, you can even hear at one point in the TikTok live, the live stream where, people are like, are you real? And he's like, yeah. And then, they're proceeding to have a conversation and they are none the wiser. Like, I can just imagine, Elon Musk saying, oh, donate Bitcoin to this account and, millions of people doing it. Can you imagine there was also this area where, a lot of Twitter accounts got hacked and someone posted, donate to these crypto accounts. But imagine now Elon Musk in millions of different locations, presidents, individuals going live, asking for donations. I mean, just take a look at this live stream because this is insane.
This is probably one of my favorite things that we've made at SpaceX. Like, forget the actual rocket. Like, I want everyone to appreciate the laminar flow.
Is this real?
I'm just as real as you and me.
Oh my gosh, okay. So I was on your last live and I had a question since that last live.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I saw a podcast where you were talking to Joe Rogan and you guys were talking about like the ocean and just like all the sea creatures that are like possibly still alive. And I was like really curious and interested if that was real.
Hi, how are you?
Elon, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, it's crazy to be on a live with you. Hey, man, I'll make it quick. I don't want to take up all the time.
Sure.
You have a mask on?
Maybe.
Oh. Well.
Okay.
Are you sending me a message on Telegram, by the way?
So if you remember before when I spoke about how Flux, you were able to generate super realistic pictures in the video, essentially what you can do now with Flux, since it was, trained on Grok, not trained on Grok, but released on Grok, you can see right here that people are able to create, realistic videos of individuals doing different things. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is funny. We've got the presidents, the people running for the, race, doing some rather questionable stuff. And we've got Elon Musk waving a gun around in a store, completely AI generated. And you can tell that this is AI generated. But what happens when in the future you, for example, train a model, okay, because you can train like a Flux image generator on someone's face. And what happens if you use that for someone and then you record that footage and then you use that footage to destroy someone's life? What happens if that footage is used inappropriately? What happens to the state of media when we can't trust any videos of certain individuals doing something? Are there going to be individuals who have done something and are going to be able to get away with those crimes because they can simply now claim that this is completely AI generated? you have to understand that there are just complete, implications for this. So it's pretty crazy that these videos do exist. And like I said before, this is the worst it will ever be. So whilst, yes, individuals aren't going to believe this, they're going to know that this is AI generated, but it just goes to show, like, I mean, I don't know what kind of society we're going to be living in the future, if there's going to be regulations on what kind of, pieces of software you can use. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the law manages to catch up with this stuff, because the law is very slow paced and AI is moving extraordinarily quickly. Like, this stuff would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. So with that being said, that is that part. And you could also see that there is this picture right here that I wanted to show you guys, because this one just looks, absolutely extraordinarily super realistic. Like, if I was browsing on Twitter and I saw that was like someone I knew, like if it was trained on their face and I saw that there, part of me would probably believe it. But ever since I've stepped in the AI space, I don't truly believe any image I see online unless it's coming from a completely verified source. Now you can see here that Elon Musk also gives us an inside view of the Cortex today, a new supercluster of, AI GPUs that are being used to train different models. This is Elon Musk's new supercluster, and over the time, we're going to see more and more compute being put into AI. I even recently spoke about how there were recent, super cluster predictions for the future. And it basically says that worst case scenario, we're going to get 10,000 times more compute by 2030. So that is 6 years from now. And while it doesn't seem, feasible right now, this is certainly something that could most definitely happen. Now, the reason I actually included that was because there was this tweet, okay? And you can see that someone said, damn, X.AI, Elon Musk's company, was started over a year ago and has leapfrogged Anthropic on the LMSYS eval. So if you don't know, this is a chatbot arena where essentially you have models that are compared based on certain different chats, okay? So you have model A and you have model B. Person inputs a chat, gets a response, rates model A better. Model A gets a vote. And over the long time, you can see that, Grok 2 has actually claimed the number 2 spot, which is tied for with Gemini 1.5 Pro. Now, the reason that this is so surprising is for many reasons. One of them being the fact that not only is X.AI such a small lab, it's something that was only started a year ago, meaning, just a year ago, they had no product, no team, no nothing. And in just a year, they managed to get to the number 2 spot, which is completely remarkable. Now, of course, I will say that this is questionable considering the fact that number 1, GPT-4o is number 1, and of course, Claude Sonnet 3.5 is number 5. So I will have to wait until this is tested against some other benchmarks, such as the Simple Bench. And if you're unfamiliar with the Simple Bench, this is basically a benchmark in which it's based on, simple reasoning. So it's spatial awareness and things that involve just basic reasoning skills. And you can see right now that currently Claude 3.5 Sonnet is actually at the leaderboard top at 27%. But the thing about this is that humans on average get 92%. So I do think that once things like the Simple Bench basic reasoning benchmarks are solved, in terms of like these models intrinsically understand how to, solve these kinds of problems, I think that in the future, these models are going to be completely intelligent beyond, a reasonable doubt. Now, interestingly enough, I did think that this was due to the way that LMSYS actually ranks these chatbots, because what actually happens is that when you're voting for these, if you're going to rate a model response, sometimes the problem with Claude is that it doesn't respond. So we all know that when we use Claude 3.5, what tends to happen is that there are many different refusal requests. For example, if you ask it to do something completely normal, for example, you might be asking, okay, how do I, make more money in this industry? It's going to be like, making money in this industry is completely unethical. I would rather you, plant vegetables in your garden or something like that. Some ethical nonsense. And the problem is that if it gives you a response like that, you're going to not rate that model as better than the other model, which is going to give you an actual response. So that's why sometimes Claude's rankings can actually be decreased. But I actually did tweet this, but I actually got a response here that someone's saying, here are the rankings without the refusal. And you can see that without the refusal, you can see that Grok 2 is still at the number 2 spot right here. And you can see the category is excluded refusal. So it seems that Grok 2 seems to be rather incredible. Now, what this means for future models is that maybe Grok 3 might just be the model that takes the number 1 spot. Because if a lab can be so lean, so focused on simply just developing a model that is purely intelligent and not restricting itself in any ways, I truly do wonder what they're going to be able to do with their next iteration of the model, because it's only 1 year and this is what they've done, which is, truly remarkable. And I remember when I was testing Sus Column R, it definitely wasn't as bad as the previous Grok, but it was really good. Like, it was actually genuinely on par with these other models. The only one issue that I have with Grok 2 is that you literally have to go over here to your tab like Grok, and then of course this is where you can message it, and then you switch to Grok, the beta, the most intelligent model. But I just rather like a website where you can actually just access Grok, because I don't want to have to use Twitter all the time just to be able to use the LLM. But I guess it's just a small issue. Now, in some more chatbot arena, it does seem to be that Google is testing another smaller model. We can see right here that there is this model A called Little Engine Test. So you can see right here, someone tweeted, is Google coming up with a new model or just a variation of an existing one? Or maybe it's the same one I know about but can't reveal. Time will tell. So you can see right here that Google's lead of product for Google AI Studio actually tweeted that testing a new engine, regardless of how little it is, it always gets me excited. So you can see right here that this is in direct reference to the Little Engine tweet. But I'm guessing that if this is a Little Engine, it is most likely going to be some kind of small language model, maybe open source for the future. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be. Maybe just Gemma 3 or just a different style of a Gemma model. But it is going to be rather interesting to see how these models manage to be, considering the rate of AI deployment. So I'm going to be really intrigued to see exactly how, things move, because one thing that I've known about Google is that recently they've been shipping a lot more products and a lot more features, even if you haven't been paying attention. Then, of course, we had the Cohere CEO actually talk about the fact that there is going to be no AI plateau. If you aren't familiar with Cohere, they are the lab that is focused on actually making models smarter, and they released earlier this year Command R.
That's going around of people saying we've plateaued, nothing's coming, it's slowing down. I actually really think that's wrong. And not just from like we need to 10x compute and that type of thing perspective, and trust me, it'll get better. But from a methods perspective. So when I was talking about like reasoners and planners and models that can try things, fail, and recover from that failure, and carry out tasks that take a long time to accomplish. These are like for the technologists, obvious things that just don't exist in the technology today. Like, we just haven't had time to turn our focus there and add that capability into the model. For the past year plus, folks have been focusing on that, and it will be ready for production. And so we'll see that come out, and I think that will be a big change in terms of capability.
So yeah, I'm definitely excited about the future of AI. You can see we just haven't had the time, and I'm going to be excited for this stuff to actually come out, because I think, yes, right now, even as many people think we're in this late stage of adoption, I still think the AI is still pretty early in the grand scheme of things of how it's going to impact society. Like right now, you think that, we're at the peak of like entire AI hype and adoption, but I still think it's pretty early on like a global scale. Like, I think this small ChatGPT moment, whilst yes, it's transformed the global consciousness, I think if we look forward 20 years, we're going to see that, wow, that was really just the beginning of this complete transformative shift. Like, for example, we don't have, personal AIs that can memorize things. We don't have AIs that can go out and do stuff for us. Like, there are just so many different things that we just don't even have yet. For example, iPhones still have Siri, which is, awful. Now, we also have Terence Tao saying that AI will enable mathematics to be done at an unprecedented scale, solving one theorem at a time and solving each problem separately, which, allows AI to, work on the space of problems and classes of thousands of problems at a time.
We prove one theorem at a time, or maybe two or three if you're efficient. But with AIs, you could imagine in the future, instead of trying to solve one problem or something, you take a class of 1,000 similar problems and just say, okay, I'm going to tell your AI, try to solve these 1,000 problems with this technique, and it will report back, oh, I could solve 35% of these problems with this technique. What about this technique? Then I can solve this percentage of problems. Well, if I combine them, I can do this. You could start exploring the space of problems rather than just each problem separately. And this is something that you either cannot do right now, or you do over a process of decades with, with dozens and dozens of papers, slowly figuring out what you can and can't do with various techniques. But with these tools, you could really do. I mean, you could really sort of start doing mathematics on a scale which is really not really unprecedented. I mean, the future is going to be really exciting, I think. I mean, we'll still also be proving theorems the old-fashioned way. In fact, we'll have to, because we won't be able to guide these AIs unless we also know how to do these things ourselves. But we'll be able to do lots of things that we can't do right now.
So you can see right here, we have a tweet from Andrej Karpathy where he's speaking about how programming is changing so fast. And he talks about how, using, Cursor plus Sonnet 3.5 instead of, GitHub Copilot. And he says that, over the last few of his days, programming is now writing English. Now, this is pretty crazy because Andrej Karpathy is pretty much a legend in the AI space. So when you have someone of this level actually talking about how they view the space in terms of coding and AI tools and how they're doing their day-to-day workflows of it just being, half coding where you write the first chunk of code, then of course you tab through completions. I think it's going to be rather fascinating considering the fact that a lot of what we've seen in the jumps in terms of the ability to now be rather effective is simply because of Sonnet 3.5. Like I've even used Sonnet 3.5 to code a few different projects, and it's just remarkable at how good it is. And the crazy thing about this is that this kind of gives me the impression that we're going to move towards a rapidly increasing area where AI enables people to be able to build the software that they truly do want and allow people to, build the kind of programs that they instantly want just via a few prompts. And I know that might sound completely crazy, but we have to put things into perspective. Sonnet 3.5 wasn't really, Anthropic's main model. This was their mid-tier model. So when they do release a future model like Claude 3.5 Opus, or, for example, we get GPT-5 or in fact Gemini 3 or Gemini 2, I can only imagine the kinds of coding capabilities that we're truly going to get out of those models. And it was only, not that much of a jump, but we can see that this small jump enabled so much people to come into the space, which is just truly fascinating. So I know that some people have said that, this isn't like a real thing, but I think when we're starting to see people like Andrej Karpathy stating that now this is part of their workflow, we have to truly understand that, change is going to be coming. And we can also see that here with the Amazon CEO, Andy Jassy, actually talking about how one of the most tedious tasks for software development is updating foundational software. It's not new work, yada, yada, yada. But basically this, they're talking about Amazon Q, their generative AI assistant for software development. And the entire thing here is they're saying that, this is a new code transformation capability and the average time plummeted from 50 developer days to just a few hours. So this has saved them, 4,500 years of work. And that number is crazy, but real. So this is why I'm saying that we are in truly a transformative area, especially in, software and coding and what these LLMs are able to do with an increasingly level of reliability and of course increased accuracy in certain areas. Like this is truly going to change stuff. Now, you can see right here, it also states that, in 6 months, we've been able to upgrade more than 50% of our production Java systems to modernized Java versions at a fraction of the usual time and effort. And it says, of course, this provides an estimate, $260 million in annualized efficiency gains. So one of the things that I've always known about Amazon is that Amazon are going hard on robotics and on the software. Like the Amazon Q agent, it actually was state of the art for software development until, there was a recent one that was released that I'm going to be talking about, but basically Genie, currently 43.8% on the benchmarks. But this, of course, poses interesting questions for the future of work. You can see here that, this is the system, this is how it works. But like I said before, guys, things are changing like so much. And I truly can't imagine the amount of businesses that are going to get built off the back of GPT-5, the amount of things people are going to be able to go and build. Like you're going to be able to say, okay, GPT-5, GPT-6, go ahead and go build this. And it's going to be able to go and do it. Now, I know not right now, of course, you're still going to need humans in the loop, but it's just, truly incredible how much everything is changing simply based on the ability of certain models. Now, in terms of the future being even more crazy, Figure's CEO, Brett Adcock, says that the company's production line for humanoid robots will be operational in 2025, starting by manufacturing hundreds and scaling to thousands of robots. So humanoid robots are coming in 2025.
We're actually starting our production line next year.
Where's it going to go? We're going to do that.
We're going to do that here in California, like close to engineering. So we really work out the kinks on like more of a traditional, like kind of pilot manufacturing line or production line. And then from there, we'll start announcing our intentions for like where like high rate look. But our production line is we're starting to design it as we speak. We'll have robots coming off the production line in 2025.
And you're scaling it for what?
We'll start with hundreds of robots and then thousands. We're actually starting our production line next year.
Now, more robot news. Something that actually did go viral was this clip in China. Basically, this was something that went viral because I got to be honest with you guys. When I first saw this robot walking, I was like, this is incredible. Like that kind of human type walk is just ridiculous. But this is not an actual robot. This is actually a human. that is dressed as a robot. So this is kind of like what Tesla did a few years ago when they were demoing the Tesla bot. It was just a person in a costume. But I think China is going to be the leader in robotics, despite the US's head with Boston Dynamics and other labs such as Figure. But it kind of showed us, because the public reaction was one that was like, wow, this is insane. But I mean, once the public, like the general public, truly realize how the future is going to be in terms of how capable these systems are going to be, I mean, I think society is going to be rather interesting to see where people's minds are at in terms of accepting the technology, if they want to adopt the technology into their daily life and all those kinds of things. And this is the last thing I want to show you guys, which is Fidara's Jim Gal actually talking about how, you know, AI can actually lead to the discovery of new knowledge, because a lot of the times what you're doing is you're taking in a lot of data, trying different things, and that's stuff that AI just truly excels at.
Demis, the CEO of DeepMind, calls like AI creativity, right? It's the ability to acquire knowledge that did not exist before, right? And I, of course, experienced this firsthand. The reason why I'm such a true believer in the technology is because, again, I was the expert who helped design the system, but this very AI agent that we created is telling me new things about the system that I didn't know about before, right? And that's a very, very powerful feeling. It's kind of like when, if you think back to AlphaGo, right? Like Lee Sedol was the best in his field at Go. He was the world champion for a decade, right? Yeah. He was at the top, and his ELO rating was just something outrageous. It was like 2,800 or something. It was outrageously high, but it had flat line, right? So for a full decade, his ELO rating was the same, and there was no one to challenge him because he was already at the top. So once he hit the top, he just kind of plateaued. And then after AlphaGo happened, and he actually got to play against AlphaGo, privately a few more times because DeepMind, had let him continue interacting with the system. What happened? For the first time in a decade, his ELO rating started climbing. And so this is what I mean when I say that I think the real power of AI is helping us discover knowledge that we didn't necessarily know about before. And where you're going to see the most gain from that, it's not going to be in routine automation things, right? Like call centers or whatever, right? It's going to be, I think, in very, very complex areas, right? Like areas where human intuition is insufficient because of immense complexity, but that is yet underpinned by data.